First off, before we start, make sure, hello, Amir, make sure that, everyone knows this is going to be recorded. So if in the event you miss it or you have to sign off and get back in, feel free to do so. And then Randy and I will share the recording with you guys when it's all said and done. So even though today's a session, we're going to talk about how to win the seller, and we're not going to talk about every aspect of the seller process because we're going to try to break down those classes into different parts. I don't want to hold you too much in a classroom for longer than an hour. So we're going to cover what we can cover within this hour, but at least we'll get an overview of what the seller class is about and how to go about doing it. So first things first, telemarketing warning. This is very, very important that you guys understand the TCPA rules around calling or telemarketing with sellers. They're getting more and more stringent on those criterias. If someone that you're calling or you're dialing a potential seller, whether it's a for sale by owner or whether it's a unconditionally withdrawn or whatever the case may be, make sure that if they tell you I am on the do not call list, that you do not keep calling them and keep talking to them. So there's penalties to that. So please make sure that this is in place. All right. Winning the seller. We're going to try in the seller's class to cover all those items. Again, like I said, I'm going to break down this class. So it's not going to be, we're not going to talk about the appointment and the pre-listing and the listing appointment and all that stuff. We will hit at those hopefully enough in there. But I think in each one of those topics, I'm looking for you guys to give me the input on what you're doing or what you also like to learn and how you want to go about doing it. So by the end of today, at least you'll be able to identify what a qualified A seller is and follow up with the appointment, how to apply the approaches to request the appointment from an A seller, how do you apply the pre-listing criteria or build the seller's confidence, and then how you're gonna demonstrate your expertise in handling the buyer's objections to win the business, or the seller's objections to win the business. So start thinking about what you learned today. Consider the questions that you might have or that might come up that you would want to share or ask. So this way I can cover it with you guys. Important. While leads are vital, one second, let me just get the, yeah. While leads are vital, it is to your sales business, sellers listings are critical to your ability to build to its highest level with the lowest cost and highest net. So we talk about this all the time in terms of why do we talk about going after seller listings? Why do we talk about prospecting for sellers or prospecting for listings as opposed to going after buyers? One, seller listings are going to be the highest dollar producing per hour for you, meaning you are going to be spending more quality time for a higher amount of money working with a seller. How many appointments does it take for you to go get in front of a seller and get a listing versus how many times does it take for you to go in front of a showing to get a buyer to actually find the property they like, then go through the showings, then put the offer, and maybe it did work, maybe it didn't work out. Even if it goes under contract, then you got to go do the inspection. And then after you do the inspection, this may work out, they may not work out. And if it doesn't work out, you got to go back and redo this again from the start. So with everything said, when you look at what we talk about in terms of leads, listings, and leverage, we talk about your leads turning into listings because the majority of your business that's going to be built via a prosperous practice is through going after listings. Also, you can very well leverage a listing, meaning your listing could be shown by a buyer's agent all while you're on vacation. Someone else could sell the property if you are the listing agent. If you're the buyer's agent, who is going to end up selling that property? It's going to be you yourself. Do me a favor, guys, for those who are attending, I have a lot of iPhone. Can you rename yourself so I know who's joining and who's on here? so we can call on you if we need to ask you a question or if we need your input. At least I'll know who's asking the questions. So rename your screen names, please. All right. So let's talk about today's is, like I said, what's an A seller, how we get the appointment, and so on and so forth. Let's talk about the A, which is a qualified seller. Just like we talk about in terms of a qualified buyer, it's the same thing that we talk about in terms of a seller. What is considered a qualified seller or an A qualified seller is a seller who is able, ready, and willing to do business in the next 14 days. To some of you, it's a seller who may be willing and ready and able to do business in the next 30 days, and that's okay. So when you're on the phone, when you are talking to a client, I have to first make sure that I am pre-qualifying that seller. And my goal is to find out, are they ready to do business today or in the next 30 days or in the next 6 months or in the next year? Is this a seller who is financially capable of doing the transaction? Meaning, are they able to financially put their home on the market and be able to get what they need to get out of the transaction? Are they able to go and be somewhere else while they're selling their home, where they're going to be moving to and what they're doing? So they're financially able to complete the transaction. They're ready and motivated to make decisions. Are they motivated to make a decision? Are they willing to engage in the market and in the type of market that we're in? If I have a seller who does not understand the market and how the market goes about and what it is today, they may or may not be willing to work with me on getting into a contract. So when we talk about able, ready, and willing, we have to talk about those clients who are financially capable of selling and who are ready to do it right now or the next 30 days, and who are able and willing to engage in the market of it is today. So there are a lot of you that are going to be talking on the phone with a lot of different sellers, that those sellers may not be quite ready. It does not mean I stop talking to them or I ignore them, because we know from follow-up, we understand that even though they may not be ready today, more than likely these sellers might be ready to conduct business in the next 60 days. They might be ready to conduct business in the next 180 days. So I have to have a plan around what type of follow-up do I have to do to then, when I talk to them in about 60 days or so, they are considered ready, willing, and able. Sometimes you might talk to some sellers who tell you, I need to do some stuff to the house. I need to fix a few things in the home, or we gotta declutter, or my kids are moving out, so on and so forth. We're not quite ready. Yes, we're willing, and yes, we are able, but we're not quite ready to conduct business in the market center in right now in the market that we are in. So with that said, I also have to put them on some type of a follow-up plan so that when they are ready, I am able to conduct business with them and do it then. So let me ask you, you can unmute and tell me, anyone has any questions about what is a ready, willing, and able seller, and how to sometimes maybe you're facing some sellers who are telling you differently? Anyone that would like to share? All right, we'll keep moving. All right, listings, leads, and leverage. We talk about listings, leads, and leverage. Every lead, seller listings means to you marketing opportunities. You have more control over your time. And when we talk about seller listings, listen, all our clients are amazing, and we're grateful to have both buyers and sellers. Therefore, we need to understand there's not like, oh, because they're buyers, I'm not going to work with them, or because they're just sellers, that's who I'm going to work with. Sellers are special because they bring us listings. We've discussed this before. The basis of a great real estate business are leads, listings, and leverage. We love the listings because they bring us not just the commission, but also the ability to build a relationship for repeat and referral business. You also have the ability to build a name for yourself within the community or within the market that you're working. Whose sign do they see when they see online? They are or in the front of the yard. They see the seller, you're listing as a listing agent. They see your sign. They bring you the best marketing opportunity because they give you also control over your time. Remember what I said. If you're working with a seller, you may go on the listing appointment once. Maybe you go the second time, but pretty much you're going to make a decision. Yes, I'm going to be listing it. And when is the next time you're going to go to the house again? You're probably not. Versus with a buyer, you're going to be doing a whole lot more time and energy spent to where you are not leveraging that time in the highest way possible. So let's talk a little bit about what are some of the virtues, like what are some of the values of why you would want a seller listing. So seller listing, like I said, it means marketing opportunities, right? You have more control over your time. Seller listings maximize your per hour compensation. Seller listings control your volume, and volume is the name of the game because volume leads to commission. With seller listings, you are on the front end of pricing because as a buyer's agent, you are talking to your buyer about this is what they listed it at. Well, who determined that listing? You and the seller determined that list price. So you're on the front end of pricing. You're kind of like a market maker. And then properly marketed seller listings bring you more business. How do they bring us more business? They either bring us more buyers that are going to call on the sign that may or may not like that listing, but they might be interested in buying similar listing, or they may bring us more sellers themselves that are going to say, well, I seen his sign and he listed and he did a good job for my neighbor. I'm going to ask my neighbor, how did that go? And then if that went well marketed seller listing that bring the seller the highest amount of money in the shortest amount of time possible with the least amount of problems will create seller referral business. So more sellers would want to do it. Now, again, as I mentioned, there's steps to the seller service cycle. So there's 7 of them. Step number 1 is the leads conversion. And that's when we talk about pre-qualifying your lead to know whether or not you're going to be able to convert on that lead at the moment, within the next 14 days, or is it within the next 30 days? Is this a 6 months process, or is this something that actually is a dead lead and I can't help them because they're not ready, willing, or able? So the lead conversion, it's the lead generation and the lead follow-up that's going to allow us to pre-qualify those sellers. Then we talk about the pre-listing. What is the pre-listing? What am I have to do today to get the property ready, today in particular, for me to be able to provide the seller with some type of value before I head to the listing consultation? So in our pre-listing, you might send them the packet. You might do a little bit of homework on the property, and we'll talk about that in this presentation. Then comes the listing consultation. When you go in front of the client and you actually have doing the listing presentation, what is it that we talk about? What is the process that we do? Again, it's a separate class on the listing presentation and how we do the listing presentation, but it is part of your seller service cycle. After you take the listing and you win the listing, you're going to be doing your servicing and marketing. You're going to turn around and you're going to promote the property. How do I go about promoting the property? What are the different techniques I use to market the property? Listing it on the MLS, doing the open houses, running social media campaigns, running pay-per-click campaigns, maybe doing an open broker open house. So different things and different methods that you're going to use to market and service the property so that you can yield the seller the highest amount of money possible in the shortest amount of time. Now, after you promote it, and if you do it at a high level, you can expect in stage 5 to get offers. And when you get the offers, how do you go about negotiating those offers, and how do you go about determining which offer is best suitable? After you negotiate the offers and you go under contract, the contract to close is a very critical stage of the process. That's the stage in the process where things or contingencies are going to come up, and those contingencies are going to be the ones that you're going to need to deal with in terms of how do I handle the EMD? How do I handle the private inspection? How do I handle city inspection if it's required? How do I handle an appraisal in the event the appraisal comes in short or comes in at value or comes in under value? How do I ensure if there are any title issues? How do I go about handling it? How do I go about my uh, lending? If the underwriter or the process that the buyer is going through is not going as expected, how do I go about doing it and um, making sure that I clear the conditions that I need to clear to get that done? So that's your contract to close. Now, agents who do business at a high level understand that step number 7, which is your post-close systems, is probably one of the more important steps of the process, because it's not always once you close and the seller gets paid, everyone goes on their way and it's gone. There are certain things that you have to do after the closing, especially servicing that seller, asking for the referrals, making sure that you stay in touch so that you can create that repeat business. So a lot of agents start from step 1 and kind of end at 6, and they forget about their sellers. And then their sellers 3, 4, 5 years later, when they're looking to buy or sell again, they forget about them. That's because we never put them in the proper follow-up. So step number 7 is very important that we talk about. All right. This is the time when you guys are looking for some input. So I know some of you who are on the call, what are some ahas or some things that you talked about before we get to the appointment? What are some things that you want to share with me about what you've heard so far? You could just hit unmute and talk. Randy, you might want to encourage them by actually unmuting and you talking, and then this way they can all talk. Otherwise, I'm going to start calling on people. Bashir, you're there?
Hello? I'm sorry, my bad. I was on a phone call.
That's okay. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. I want to ask you, because you've had 2 listing sellers that came in that those were not friends or family. So there was actually competitive sellers. Tell me a little bit about, from what you heard, tell me a little bit about the pre-qualifying process when you were talking to these sellers. How did you go about pre-qualifying them to make sure that they are ready, willing, and able?
How did I go by pre-qualifying? Well, first I set the appointment and I met them face to face. And
Beautiful.
during our conversations, I was asking them questions on where they were. Was this, what kind of property was this? Was this in like an investment property? Was this their primary property? If it was their primary property, great. Where are you guys planning to relocate? And what's your time frame on that? And when it's
Beautiful.
investor property, I would ask him, okay, what's your plan and why do you want to sell this property? And what are your plans to do with the funds for that property?
Beautiful.
Depending on what the answer is based on what their time frame is. Like for an investor, like for example, the one in Inkster, um, that I'm selling, I have it pending now. He told me that he wanted to use those funds and buy a few semi trucks with it. And when he told me that, I'm like, okay, great. When do you expect um to buy those semi trucks? He's like, I want to do it before spring because that's when peak season is. So
No,
okay, great. Now we can put it on the market now and try to get you some money in order to buy those semi trucks. Um,
beautiful. So, yeah. So Bashir, what he is saying is basically, essentially, he said he asked the questions, and depending on the answers that the sellers give him, he had a plan or a strategy around how to go and address this with the process, because it's not one size that fits all. You're not going to find 2 sellers that are going to have the same scenario, and you're not going to be able to answer or determine a strategy for those sellers the same way. Each seller is kind of different in the way they handle things. Thank you, Bashir, for sharing that. All right.
my pleasure.
Now, Habibi, thank you. Now, get into the appointment. Let's talk about how do I convert those A sellers to listing appointments where we can win the seller. What is the key? We're going to talk about some of the key items or the key stuff that's going to take to turn those A sellers into appointments. Number one, and that's a very, 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 very important one. Respond right away to the lead inquiries. There's nothing worse. There's nothing worse than a seller contacting us and us not getting back to that seller in enough time. And I'm guilty of it. We're all guilty of it. It's a matter of us making sure that we are treating each call with the professional level that it requires. Speed to lead is a very important thing. Speed to lead is a very important thing. So if the seller is asking you for stuff to get back to them on, if the seller is asking you for certain answers to certain questions, don't ignore it. Respond to them right away. Whatever the question it is, even if you don't know the answer, the best answer is, it's a great question. I'm not quite sure that I have the right answer or I have the answer 100%. I'm going to find out. I'm going to get back with you. But make sure that you actually get back with them. Number two, get valid and complete contact information. Save it to command and create an opportunity. Funny story. I got a call from a seller. All I remember is his name was Chris. He called me, and this was a little bit while ago. I was doing some business and at the time that day, and I was kind of like caught up, right? I forgot to call him to confirm the appointment because I could not find his number. So I just showed up to the house. I had the address. I showed up to the house. I knocked. He didn't answer. I left. It was only after like that day, and then I redug the information a day or the next day later, and I called him. I said, I showed up, and he goes, I totally forgot. I wish you would have reminded me. So, and the reason I didn't want to say I didn't get your full information, but that's part of the reason why the appointment did not work out, is because I never followed up because I did not write down the information. So please, used to be writing it down on a pen and paper and all that. Now we have the technology of being able to input that information through command. You'll never lose it. Create the opportunity in command. You will never lose it. Determine their motivation to sell so you can speak to it. Just like Bashir was saying. Once I asked like, hey, what's making us want to sell? Where are we planning on moving to? Where are we going to? When we do this and we ask about the motivation, I'll be able to tell if they're motivated, not motivated. Is this going to be a seller who is actually going to be able and willing when an offer comes in to sign it and actually be able to sell? Or is this someone whose motivation is a little bit too low to where I'm not going to be able to help them? So I got to be able to do all that. Now, set the appointment, time and date for as soon as possible, and send the pre-listing packet. And we're going to talk about the pre-listing packet, but set the appointment so you can help them. Now, if I know what sellers want, from their agent, I'll be able to speak to that and I'll be able to talk about that. So, getting the appointment is about letting the sellers know that you're going to be the agent that fulfills the needs for their transaction. So what do sellers want? Now, if I know what sellers want, of course, I'll be able to speak to it. 27%, or actually 21%, they want you to sell their home competitively. What does it mean by selling the home competitively? Meaning, provide them the highest price possible. Provide them the highest price possible and be competitively priced. They're not looking for someone to give them $1 million on a home that's not realistically $1 million. They're looking to get a competitive price, but they're also not looking to get $30,000 on a home that's $250,000. They want a competitive price. So I got to get good at being a good pricing agent. I got to be able to price the property competitively. Does that make sense? 20% want you to help market the home to potential buyers. 20% want you to actually promote it and market it to potential buyers. 16% want you to sell it with a specific time frame. 16% also want you to find ways to help the home to fix it, to sell it for more. So they're looking for that advice. They may or may not take that advice, but if there's an advice on beautifying the property and make it more marketable, sellers are looking for their agent to tell them that this is going to work and this is not going to work. So in summary, sellers are looking for three things only. How are you going to get me the highest amount of price possible for the property in a competitive way? How are you going to sell my property in the shortest amount of time possible? And how are you going to sell my property with the least amount of headache and the least amount of problems? If I can address all those three at the listing appointment, I'm going to pretty much guarantee that I'm going to be the right agent for the job. How do I build confidence and trust? What are some ways that I can build confidence and trust with my seller? As you talk to your seller to get the appointment, remember, these conversations, they're going to be the foundation for the working relationship. They are listening to what you're saying. Your first goal is to connect with them, to build the confidence and trust. You do that by telling them, first and foremost, you have to do it by first showing that you are confident yourself and showing that you're a professional by asking questions and by actually doing the right work. You are showing them that you're the right person for the job. If you're not confident, if you're coming in and you're hesitant and you're shaky and you're not sure if you're going to do it, how are they going to have confidence in you that you're the one that's going to be handling it for them? So they need to experience what it's like to work with an agent who asks the right questions, who listens and cares. It's a delicate balance. You show them that you know, and again, that you're confident. But if you're not sure on how to go about doing it, there's nothing wrong in saying, you know what? I'm going to get back with you on that. I'm going to find out for you the answer. I'm going to get back with you on that. Now, when a question is asked, answer it. When an objection comes up, address it. So, and again, if a question is asked, answer it. And if you don't know the answer, there's nothing wrong in saying, I'm going to get back with you. You know what? I'll get back with you on that. That's a great question. Let me double check. Let me find out, and I'll get back with you. And if a client says, what are you suggesting I should do? That's a great question. Let me do some little bit more homework or do more research, and I'll get back with you, and make sure you get back with them. And if an objection is being raised about something, address that objection. Don't brush it off. It's like I'll make sure we address that, in the next 10 minutes, or I'm sure we'll address that in the next, or you know what? That's a great question you bring up. Here's the strategy that we're going to go about it. And all of you are going to see that sellers have either questions or objections. And the majority of time, the objections that they have are not necessarily objections because they don't know. All they're doing is they're looking for clarity. They want to know what more can you clarify for me so I'm able to turn around and sell the home, or employ you as the agent to sell the home. Now, the pre-listing packet. What is the goal for my pre-listing packet? The pre-listing packet, just from the word pre-listing, it's supposed to pre-sell. What does it pre-sell? It has to pre-sell on you. So my pre-listing packet should build the seller's confidence. Answer a little bit of basic questions about the process, and maybe about some objections before you meet. So are you a full service? Yes, we are a full service. You can have some of those Q&A in the pre-listing packet. What I'd like you guys to do is I'd like you to go into Command, and under the Design Center in Command, you'll be able to find pre-made pre-listing packets that you can use and make it and customize it yourself. Remember, the goal of this pre-listing packet is to kind of like give you the visa, or give you the pass to get in front of the seller, or to get in front of the client before you show up. So it talks a little bit about yourself. It talks a little bit about your company. It talks a little bit about your process. It also talks a little bit about referrals, or about some references that you may have that the sellers may say, oh, you know what? Bashir's showing up. I see how he looks like. This is his email. This is his team. This is his contact information. These are some sellers that he helped in the past. These are his marketing steps that he's going to go over. I basically use the pre-listing packet as a guide for my appointment when I show up, and I kind of go over that with them. Now, it also saves time because when you go to the appointment, you're going to tell them, like, I sent you a pre-listing packet. Have you had a chance to look at it? Yeah, were there any questions? Yeah, no, everything looks good. So this way, a lot of the information that is in there has already been covered. It states your value. You tell the seller what you bring. You tell the seller what you're going to be bringing to the table, the pricing, how you go about doing the marketing, how you handle, issues that come up with the transaction. What are your expertise, so on and so forth. So this is really the goal of my pre-listing packet. Now, let's talk about the criteria. What are some of the criterias of my pre-listing packet? Will you review it in the listing presentation? You may or may not, depending if the sellers have any questions. So you may go over like, how I'm leaving you this packet. Do you have any questions about it? No. Does it eliminate the need for a listing consultation? It does not eliminate the need for a listing consultation. But a lot of times, instead of your listing consultation being an hour, now your listing consultation might be dropped down to 35, 40 minutes. Or instead of it being 2 hours, because they're going to talk to you about this and about that, they have some information in their pre-listing packet that might shrink the consultation from like 2 hours down to an hour. Is it a primer for education you will provide at the listing consultation? Absolutely. Absolutely, because you're going to be educating them on the process and on what it is that you do. Like I said, the pre-listing packet, you have, like, this is an example of a pre-listing packet that's in Command. What does the pre-listing packet have? Pre-listing packet has a cover page, right? It has a cover page. It has your contact information. It might have your promise to the seller, meaning like, what is it that you are offering or that you do? It might have the selling process overview. What does it entail? What does the selling process entail? It will have some general pricing information, right? It may have some general pricing information on how I go about determining the price. It has your value proposition. What does you or your team bring to the table? What does you or your company bring to the table? What do you or your office bring to the table? Your broker or office or personal information, your metrics, your market share data, so on and so forth. Again, like I said, it may have also some client testimonials, and it may have some previous listings that you've helped did. Even if you did not do listings before, who else did listings? Your office did. So you can turn around and use some of the office listings to highlight or showcase in your pre-listing packet. I've seen some pre-listing packets that are 20 pages. I've seen some pre-listing packets that are 5 pages. Which one is better? It doesn't matter. As long as the pre-listing packet has what it contains in it and the information that you need to deliver to them to give them a better idea of who's showing up at the door to come talk about it. This is kind of like a little bit of a showcasing yourself before you go on the appointment. And again, in Command, you can go in there and find those pre-listings packets pre-made, and you can customize them to yourself to make it something you want. All right. Delivery of the pre-listing packet. Back in the day, the pre-listing packet used to be delivered only by dropping it off to the house or by mailing it. Well, right now you can create a digital pre-listing packet to where you can email it to the client. So as soon as I hang up the phone, after setting the appointment, the date and time, I send them a pre-listing packet. It has the information about me and about what I do and so on and so forth. So the delivery of the pre-listing packet could be done in person, could be mailed, could be emailed. It's really up to you how you prefer on doing it. In preparation for the seller consultation or for the listing appointment, I want to make sure I confirm the appointment date, time, and location. Don't do what I did and just assume that we're going to show up and not follow up. Ensure all decision makers attend. Make sure the husband and wife are there. It's not enough that you do the listing presentation for the husband, because if the wife is part of the decision making, you're going to need to do that again over and over. And don't rely on the husband delivering the message to the wife, because it's always going to be short. It's always going to be a message that's incomplete. Now, I make sure the husband and wife are there. And if it's a time that does not work for both, I want to find the time that works for both so they can both be there so we can make a reasonable decision. Review the lead sheet. The lead sheet is also in command. The lead sheet is basically what Bashir mentioned about what the house size is, how many bedrooms, updated, not updated, have you done anything updates in the home, where are you planning on going, all that stuff. So now I have a little bit of that information ahead of time, and I know when I get to the property is going to be different. But when I arrive to the property, I might have a good idea of I'm dealing with a bungalow, I'm dealing with a 3 bedroom, I'm dealing with a house with a finished basement, unfinished basement, so on and so forth. So at least they will help you prepare so you're not completely in the dark. And then arrive to the listing presentation in a professional manner. It's very important that you are dressed professionally for the appointment, that you smell good, you look good, you didn't roll out of bed and just showed up to the appointment. Again, you are not only representing yourself, you're also representing the company and you're representing all your fellow agents. So making sure that you're a professional always helps. We're going to go quickly and talk about the listing appointment. Like I said, the listing appointment is a class in itself, or a session in itself. But at least we're going to talk about what you've done in the pre-listing packet and does for you. Let's prep for the listing, agreement. You create a great impression to build the seller's confidence in you as their real estate agent of choice. All that happens, the purpose of the listing presentation is to get the seller to list with you. So to list with you, you need to create great impression. You're going to build confidence that they are actually interviewing the right person. Sharing your price recommendation, the initial list price of the property, and what you think the property should sell for, and your reasoning behind it. Like why my recommendation is that this price, and why do I think that this is the right price for you. So remember, the goal is to explain that you believe that this is the price that's going to get their home sold in the shortest amount of time and for the most amount of money possible. Seller is the one who's actually going to determine the actual list price. Our job is just to make the recommendation. So it's only after I explain how I arrived at the price is when I ask the seller, what do you think of the price? Or what is in your opinion, what do you think you need to list the price at? And then you set the expectations for how you'll market the property and the homework and the work that you will have to do with the sellers. So this is going to be a partnership between you and the seller. The listing agent and the seller are getting into a partnership. So now you're going to be setting the expectations of how you're going to go about marketing the home for them and how you're going to do the work for them. So just like the buyer's packet, you don't have to figure this out yourself. There are beautifully designed templates that you can use in Designs in Command. And you can go in there and actually look at several different listing presentations and listing packets that you're going to say, okay, this is too long, this is too short, I'm going to build my own. But you don't have to reinvent the wheel, you guys. You guys can just go in there and design it yourself, put your logo, put your picture, put the stuff that you need to put on there and make it yourself and make it your own. You don't have to create the material or the wording. And I'll be more than happy if some of you come across some listing presentations and you want to run them by me. I'll take a look at them and help you decide which one suits you. Now, how the listing presentation meets the seller needs and wants. Remember, the seller needs to sell the property for the most amount of money in the least amount of time possible with the least amount of problems. I gotta address those needs in the listing presentation. So I have to make sure that the client knows that I'm here to service them. So what's the one thing that has to happen to make that dream scenario a reality for you? How can I make that happen for you? Why is that important to you? I need them to visualize the scenario of selling their home. If they're selling their home and they're moving to a bigger home, I want them to paint the picture of what does that look like for them. If we could just one more thing to make the process even better, what would it be? If I can take something off your plate and make it easier for you, what is that one thing that you want to make sure it happens? Why is that important to you? So it's important to not only tell them about what we are going to do. I also want to know how do I win with that seller? What would make that seller happy? I'm knowledgeable and caring and the best agent for these clients. They will appreciate my expertise and preparation and choose me to present them as they sell their home. This is the type of stuff that you need to talk about to yourself, but it's very important that you understand what the seller wants. All right. Again, the listing walkthrough, when you arrive to the potential seller home, it's important to establish yourself as the knowledgeable professional. So you get to work right away. You greet them, you put your stuff on the table, and you ask that, can we take a look? Can we do a walkthrough? I want to walk through the home and take a look at the home. Sometimes you may choose to do the walkthrough on your own. Sometimes the sellers may accompany you on the walkthrough. That's fine. It's also always a good idea to like compliment something that they've done. If you find something that they have done that makes the home stand out, commend them on that. This is a potential client home after all. They're likely very proud of it. They're very proud of what they've done. So if they've done a good job with the kitchen, oh man, I love how you've done this kitchen. This is a great one. A compliment isn't just kind. It shows that you actually value their home. So I like to leave stuff at the kitchen or at the kitchen table or at the dining table, somewhere where they do it. And the reason I do this is because that's where majority of people make decisions at the house. They don't make the decisions uh, in a living room or in the family. They usually make a lot of their decisions somewhere where they're very comfortable, which is a dining table or a kitchenette, so on and so forth. So plus also the table is a good spot for you to sit down and have a face-to-face with the client. Try to avoid the sofa, the recliner, the comfortable chair, because it takes away from the business aspect of what you're there to do. You're there to conduct business. So table provides, like I said, a great space for you to talk, and it's a familiar, intimate place in the living room for them. So this way you're asking to be kind of like let into their home. So your home walkthrough is going to the home walkthrough that you do is going to actually teach you a little bit more about the home, and it's going to pinpoint for you some stuff that you're going to maybe highlight in the home and maybe some stuff that you're not going to highlight. So if you know there are some stuff that may actually hurt the home, this is the stuff when you talk to the client and you let the seller know, we might want to paint this, we might want to fix this, we might want to remove this, we might want to add something here. So you're helping the client kind of market their own property as well. So after I'm done with the client, I'm actually sending them a handwritten thank you note. Again, the handwritten thank you note could be digital or it could be done via email. I'm sorry, could be digital, it could be done via mail. So whatever it is that you want to do, that's how you will do it. All right. I'm going to leave the listing agreement and I'm going to leave the paperwork for a different class. So we're going to do that in a separate session. But I'm going to stop sharing.